Hi, Matthew. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Payam. I'm good, and you?
Fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Thanks
you
for
and I
having me.
have worked together for a few years, but if you could let our audience know about who you are, who's Matthew, give us a detailed background.
All right.
And we go from there.
Mathieu Fleury. I'm one of the partners at Leader Lane Development. We're a mid-rise developer in Toronto, focused on purpose-built apartment buildings. We have a few projects in Etobicoke right now. One of them that we've been working on together at 230 Royal York. It's a 9-story, 60-unit mass timber building that we're going to be occupying this summer. We have two more of those right now under construction that are coming up for construction in the following year in partnership with Windmill Development. We're under construction right now on the Queensway with Elm Developments. We're pretty busy in Etobicoke, but maybe I'll go back and maybe give you the full background as to how I got here. So grew up in Montreal. I did my undergrad in management accounting. I ended up going on exchange at the University of Manchester when I was doing my undergrad. I really enjoyed living in the UK. I wanted to specialize in real estate, started applying for a master's program over there, and got in the Master of Real Estate Finance at Cambridge. And so I ended up doing my master's over there. That was back in 2007, graduated in 2008 at the peak of the mortgage crisis. I couldn't find a job for the life of me. Yeah, funny how things come around. We're kind of in a similar situation now.
Into full circle.
Yeah, so I know the feeling for some of the graduates right now that are looking for work. I remember when I graduated, and it was definitely challenging. So couldn't find a job for the life of me in England, unfortunately. Had to come back to Canada, move back to my parents' place in Montreal, and there wasn't much going on in Montreal either at that time. And started applying for jobs, and ended up, my first interview took almost a year to get. Ended up getting an interview to work for Loblaw Properties. And that was the first thing that came across that was even related to real estate. I jumped on it, and I started working there, and it was kind of a new role at the time. I was really in charge of evaluating any kind of CapEx project that they had anything over $1 million that they wanted to spend money on. I was kind of running the analysis for that. So it was pretty interesting. I worked on a lot of new stores at the time. Maple Leaf Gardens was kind of starting. There was the new store being built that was about to start at Queen and Portland. Ended up spending 2 years there, but wanting to specialize more in development. So started applying for roles and got into Great Gulf Homes and started there as an analyst. And it was kind of baptism by fire there at Great Gulf when I started. The person that I was replacing had become CFO of H&R Development, and it was filling some pretty big shoes. They had a lot of pro formas that were 6-month stales that hadn't been touched in a while, and was kind of brought on to kind of take over all of this. So the person at the time that hired me left within a month, and then I started reporting to one of the owners directly. And
talk about deep end.
Yeah, I definitely got thrown in the deep end pretty quickly. I remember 1 month in, I had my first real test. I was kind of rebuilding everything from scratch, and we had a partners meeting for one floor east. I'll always remember. I got in the morning at like 8. I was meeting with 2 of the owners to go over what I did, and I'd kind of taken the liberty to adjust some of the assumptions in that pro forma, interest rates and whatnot. And got told very quickly that I should not have done that, and I kind of like fixed everything before the meeting, and everything was okay. And it's like I made it. Like
so that's an important lesson learned there.
Absolutely, yeah. So very interesting time at Great Gulf. When I was there, we were working on a lot of high-rise projects. Obviously, Charlie was under construction at King and Charlotte. One Bloor East was about to start. Had started marketing. They had just bought Pace at Jarvis and Dundas was going. They were replying to the RFP for Mold on the waterfront. That was going to be the first building there. Kind of went through that. Went through quite a bit of acquisitions there at Great Gulf. 357 King, home at Create Power, Young and Rich. A lot of really cool projects. And so I started doing high-rise there. And then after a little while, there was really no one running numbers. It was for the low-rise business, so kind of took that over. And I really learned a ton at Great Gulf. Really enjoyed working there. It's really
Seems like
where,
an awesome opportunity there.
yeah, it's really where I cut my teeth, I would say. Kind of being side by side, working with the owners and just being in the nitty gritty of development and kind of supporting that business. So an opportunity came up after about 4 years of doing that to move to Dream Unlimited, and it was a great opportunity, and I kind of took the jump and kind of build a team from scratch there. A similar role, but obviously Dream being a public company, a little bit more complexity in terms of the development finance and the reporting. And yeah, there was it was another very interesting experience there working at Dream Unlimited. There was a lot of projects going on. Also, the Panama Leeds Village was being built. The whole distillery district. There's a couple of parcels still left to build. I was dealing with the whole partnership with streetcar development, which was going on at the time, and we did a partnership with CP Rail at some point to become their kind of real estate advisor, if you want, to try to see if there was any redevelopment potential on all their underutilized land. Yeah, so ended up spending 3 years there, and after I moved to private equity, I worked for ForgeStone Capital for about 4 years. And private equity is a very different world coming from merchant development. But I think it was the right order in my career to kind of having worked for a developer and kind of understanding the whole process, being able to evaluate other people's project. I think that was the right thing to do. And yeah, it was very interesting. Also at ForgeStone, he was probably underwriting over 100 projects a year, really investing in one or two at the time. So meeting a lot of people, evaluating a lot of projects, was really on top of the market. And yeah, after that, kind of saw a gap in the market when I was at ForgeStone. The projects we were investing in were kind of on a larger side. Ideally, when you're deploying $100 million fund, you don't want to do too many $2 and $3 million equity projects. So you kind of have to pick and choose, and they tend to be on the larger side. But there was a lot of projects that were smaller that I thought had a lot of merit, and kind of saw a gap for really what initially we thought was the end user market being underserved. On the condo side, at least, right? It's really the missing middle that everyone's talking about that not a lot of people have been executing on. Partially because they haven't had to, because the 40, 50, 60 story towers were still viable
for a long time. Yeah,
and we're working for a very long time. The investor market has been the strongest probably anywhere in the world in real estate, the GTA. So, and the mid-rise stuff has always been very difficult to execute, but not to say that they're not desirable from an end user perspective, right? There's just hasn't been a lot built. So kind of started with that thesis, and I ended up buying our first site in Oakville, an existing 3-story office building that we were gonna tear down and redevelop as a condominium building. Ended up being pretty challenging to kind of find the equity to do it. Talk about smaller projects and talk about private equity. Typically, a lot of the private equity groups, like I said, need some larger projects to make it work. So anyway, our first project didn't really end up going anywhere. We ended up selling the land after a few years, not having done much, but kind of landed on the program that we're doing right now, which is the project that we worked on together at 230 Road, with the intention initially to create a program out of this specific site configuration, which is sites on the avenues that are anywhere from 50 to 70 to maybe 100 feet of frontage that you can kind of replicate, right? And so that's kind of where we are right now. Sorry, I'm just rambling, but
that was good, because so here's the two takes on that intro there. One is that as someone who's worked with you for the past 2-3 years now, you're so calm and humble and cool that unless, like, a lot of these things that you just said are for the first time I'm hearing. The second part is that it's interesting. Some people have 20 years of same experience, and yours doesn't seem to be like that. This is like 20 years of very different types of experiences, which kind of all of them somehow synergize and align, if you may, which is kind of the question. So before we dive into this a little bit more, was the idea of the financing side was always to get into real estate, or was it an event of luck?
Yeah, I knew really early on that I wanted to specialize in real estate. Like I'd say even before doing my undergrad, when I was in Cégep, worked on a project on our personal finance class where we were evaluating an apartment building. to see how viable it would be to just buy it and renovate it and hold it. And I kind of got hooked right away on the real estate aspect. Like I just thought it
this
was,
is my thing.
yeah,
This
I
is
just
my
thought
thing.
like, okay, I like the numbers part, but this is really makes it tangible, right? Like you can see it, feel it, touch it. And there's so many aspects to it.
Okay, so it kind of worked out then. Kind of
Yeah,
worked out
no, it definitely
with
worked
that
out.
path.
I got kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it's lucky, but I guess for me, it was like, I kind of knew right away what I wanted to do and I was able to pursue it and it worked out.
That's a big advantage. That's a big advantage. So
Yeah.
with that being said, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. The like you said, like you've been around, you've tried different things, and I've watched your portfolio personally. It grew quite aggressively. It has been growing quite aggressively for the past. Leader Lane, I think you guys formally, like officially, have been in existence for like almost 5 years now.
Yeah, it's been
Correct me if
5 years
I'm
now.
wrong.
Yeah.
And for a 5-year company, you have a very decent sized portfolio. And also, I have to say that you have a relatively small team, but very capable people. So kudos to them.
Yeah.
But how is that going? Like, I'm just curious. In the past 5 years, in some of the most challenging times that we've seen in the market, is that maybe walk us through that? Like, how has that happened? You've grown exponentially, and hopefully keep doing that.
Yeah, no, definitely. We're in kind of been two streams, I guess. Like our first starts, really, we wouldn't be here obviously without partners. I mean, this after the site that we had purchased in Oakville, we kind of started looking for another project to kind of start generating some fees. And then we kind of came across what our house was doing at the time. They were building their pilot project at Queen and Coxwell. We knew Lead from our time at Dream through the Brightwater project, and we thought that was really interesting what he was doing. If you're not familiar with that project, it's basically two 40-foot sites at Queen and Coxwell on the northwest corner that our house at the time, which they rebranded to Assembly, we're building out of mass timber, 6 stories. They got it done through site plan and minor variance, no rezoning, right? No below grade parking, parking through the laneway at the rear. We're like, okay, that's really interesting. Like maybe maybe this is something that we can create a program out of it. So yeah, initially kind of started working with our house on this initiative. We bought a site to do exactly that, 722 the Queensway in Royal York, 50 feet of frontage on a corner with a laneway at the back, and started raising equity for that. And again, it's like one site is fairly small, but we kind of reconnected with Windmill at the time, who we knew from our days at Dream. And Windmill had started this fund with Epic Investment called the One Planet Living Fund, which is a highly sustainable, if you're not familiar, One Planet Living is an actual framework, not too dissimilar to Lead or Well. It's run by a nonprofit called Bioregional out of the UK. And that they thought that program was really appealing, right? Like building buildings out of mass timber, the repeatability, just the desirability of the product. But again, one site was very small, so it wasn't enough equity to kind of be worth anyone's time. So so then we kind of went out and we bought 2 more sites. And the next one was at 230 Royal York, and that's the one that we first started construction on. And then we ended up buying another one at 430 Royal York, and we're like, okay, now we have 3 sites, right? Like let's do it. And we were pitching people at the time to do it as purpose-built rental, but nobody really believed the story at that time. I think rents in Etobicoke were $365 a foot. We were underwriting rents at $4, but at the time there had been 7 or 8 projects that had launched at $1165 a foot that were all selling well. And I'm like, okay, well, that was the classic story of the past 15 years. It's like, oh, condos are making more money, so let's do condos. So we started on that basis, but fortunately kind of pivoted fairly early on. I would say in 2023, we kind of saw the writing on the wall that, okay, things are not going to be the same anymore. And so, that kind of got us really started. And then we ended up buying another site that Jane and Bloor, also in partnership with Windmill, that we got rezoned. Took quite a bit of time on that one, and so we're still working on that. And then after that, we kind of focused on the slightly larger sites. So 1156 kind of came after that, where it's a full city block. But we've been really good at not having to go through rezoning. The only one that we've gone through rezoning so far was the one at Jane and Bloor. But all our other sites have been approved through site plan and minor variance, and a lot of them, 230 Royal Area got about 18 variances. Same for 1156 the Queensway. And yeah, we are where we are. I mean, look, it's it takes a while, right? Like we're 5 years in, but we haven't delivered anything yet. Crazy enough. So
You're close. You're close to it. Like the first one, I think you're a couple months away, and the
yeah,
second one seems like you're not. You're in pretty decent shape. So
yeah.
let me just, if you were to simplify, if we were to work with that your original thesis of repeatable urban infill projects like 50, 60, 70 foot lots, what was your investment box? What were your criteria? Like how were you looking at them in terms of, okay, this is right, this is a good side, this one's not. Maybe can you simplify that for us a little bit?
Oh, yeah. That's not an easy. That's not an easy
So
question.
it's not a fair question.
Yeah, no, it's a very fair question. It's more what we're doing was very much pioneering, right? Like we started with obviously like everybody does an idea of what the underwriting was going to be like, and I think it was very much predicated on also on time compression, because again we're going through a rezoning. We're not building any below grade or those buildings are slab on grade. The mass timber we thought was going to be very quick to build, obviously, because there's a big offsite component, right? So that was like the whole program was really much predicated on time compression, which on the first project is not really happening for multiple reasons. But yeah, I'd say that was probably the
So pick the path of least resistance, basically.
yeah.
And that's what we did, I think. Like basically stick to the slab on grade. Don't ask for too many things. Let's just like get in, get out, get as quickly possible. Okay.
Yeah, although the rules of the city have changed like in our favor, to be honest, for mid-rise, right? Like when we started the
Yeah,
angular
that's true.
planes were still very much a thing. Like the scheme at 230 Royal York was very different initially. We had townhouses at the back of that site because it's a 160-foot site. And then even now, like we're actually in a PMTSA now that got enacted. Like if it wasn't, if we would have been 2 years later, we probably wouldn't be even building the same building. We'd probably be going higher on that site. So, uh,
Things are moving. It seems like I was having a conversation the other day with a friend, and I'm like, listen, if with all this push that is coming through financing, through CMHC, through regulations, policy at the city, mind you, they're not perfect, they're not still syncing up. But at the end of the day, this is the most push I've seen in the past more than a decade to get these mid-rises, infill urban projects
yeah,
actually moving. If this thing doesn't happen in the next 12 to 18 months, then quite honestly, I don't know how it ever would, right? Because yes, like you said, like PMTSA, the MTSAs themselves, and the whole thing about with the EHAN major streets,
yeah,
it's opening a lot of doors. Don't get me wrong. Again, there are lots of issues
yeah,
that we deal with Toronto Hydro, with Toronto Water,
yeah,
with setbacks, with SBA. Like I can talk about this for hours and hours, and I'm sure
yeah.
you can do the same. But at the same time, there's a push, and it's been probably the best time to get into mid-rise business compared to the past 15 years.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah. No,
Would you agree
absolutely.
with
Yeah, it
that?
used to be it used to be almost impossible, right? Like that's
Yeah.
why you haven't seen a lot of them being delivered now. Totally, like things are kind they're getting done in the city. Like the committee of adjustment is not for the faint of heart, though. Like that's a whole different
It's true.
process that
That's very true.
we can talk about. But no, definitely, I would say like approvals are not even the bottleneck anymore. It's more
Right.
yeah, it's a
Making
lot
the
of other
numbers
things.
work.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
can you
Make
make
the
the
numbers
numbers
work.
work? Yeah.
Yeah. The uncertainty in the market. So I want to go back to your older days
Mm,
in the more called the larger companies, larger scale projects. I read somewhere, I think on one of the websites, that you've been involved in basically 15,000 delivery of 15,000 units and like 7 million square footage of projects,
yeah.
right? And one of the things that I'm very curious about personally is the processes, the practices, the values, the way these companies that manage to deliver at this scale,
Mm,
how do they go about these? If you were to go back, take a look at the first, let's say, more half of your career before you're starting on your own,
yeah.
and look at it and say, listen, these are the 5 things, 5 principles, 5 rules, 5 processes that I saw that really made a difference for a first golf, for a dream, for Loblaw. And this is, I think these are the 5 things that I'm going to take away and implement in our own company.
Mm.
What would those be?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's a great golf. It was very much a kind of one building at a time, kind of, at least in the high rise group, right? Like we would never even look at multi phases, or it was very much like, okay, we're going to do one building, right? And we're going to do it really well. And it was concentrated into areas where I guess like they had some comfort that like it was a good place, right? Like they were very much concentrated at King and Spadina at the time. They had a few buildings there. Charles and Jarvis. The waterfront was a little bit of an experiment, but obviously Yonge and Bloor can't really go wrong. But kind of concentrated in those areas where just they had conviction, I would say, and it was very much about discipline. Like even back then, it was when I started, it was very much I need you to know every single line item in this pro forma, like because development is very much about every single assumptions that go in there, right? It's just there's no shortcut. Like you have to know everything. You need to know every single thing that you need to know how to calculate it and when you're going to spend it, where all those assumptions are coming from, and that's kind of is the sum of all this that kind of make the pro forma work. But it was very much, and that's why I learned so much in my position is because everything at the end of the day kind of comes back to the pro forma, right? It's like you kind of have to take all the information from what everybody's doing and kind of consolidate it translate into a financial model that really tells the story of the building, right? So, and that's why I got to learn so much is learning from what everybody else is doing, right? Like from the project managers, from the accountants, the construction people, the legal, the sales and marketing. And I was lucky at Grey Golf, we had kind of everything in house. Like we were just doing it all from start to finish. So, and just having that owner's perspective that was, and really for them, I was really just there to kind of validate what they were already doing in their head. Like they already knew the answer. They just needed me to kind of translate it into something more formal.
Put it all together and get it on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I was just very much about discipline, and like you kind of get to see like how just the efficiency of the building is just so important, right? Like if you're off by a percentage points, it's like, well, it goes from working to not working. Yeah, there's
and sorry, efficiency. You're talking about layouts,
building efficiency. Yeah, like what you're selling over what you're building, right? So
discipline and building efficiency, layout efficiency. Anything else comes to mind?
No, I mean, like back then, the market wasn't even a concern, right? Like we weren't even talking about, oh, are we going to be able to sell? Are we going to be able to sell at the right price? It was more like, okay, you were underwriting a number, and it was like, okay, most likely it's going to sell faster than you thought at higher prices. So that was never an issue. But then it was like, okay, it's figuring out the timing of like, okay, we need to start construction as soon as we can, right? Like, and that was kind of the goal. And I guess it still is if you're building a condo, right? Like a lot of groups have been getting caught by pre-selling in one market, building in another, where construction costs are escalating so quickly that just, yeah, it becomes very challenging. And some groups are really specialist at that, of like just selling really quickly and then putting shovel in the ground extremely quickly. Now the formula is very different for purpose built. It's arguably a lot more risky, where you're kind of locking in your cost without knowing what your revenue is going to be. So you really have no safety net, like building the building on spec. It's a whole, and that's why a lot of groups I think haven't been wanting to pivot, right? Because it's a very risky proposition. So
if it's from condo to purpose built rental,
yeah.
So you're saying that in your mind, despite the somewhat of a rush that we have on the PVRs these days, you still think it's pretty risky endeavor?
Absolutely, yeah. It is very risky. Yeah, I think it's a rush because a lot of groups are stuck and they don't have a choice. Which, if you're kind of stuck, like we've kind of been lucky that we're not stuck with any projects that are that we've started selling that we're stuck in the not being able to reach our pre-sales threshold, or that we've sold and now we're trying to close and we have a lot of unsold units. Like we're not, like thankfully. We've pivoted early enough.
You can wait. Basically, you can wait and you can bear it out, I guess.
Yeah, we can't wait too long, but we're at least we're not dealing with like kind of, it's not crisis management on like, okay, we're really struggling in any of those two situations.
And to be clear, like going back to the PBRs, because that's interesting for me to dive in a little bit more. Is the main risk in your mind the actual demand in the market, or like which would translate into what your square footage rent is going to be, or like are you like what is the main driver of the uncertainty there?
Yeah, I'd say the market, right? Like if you've delivered the building at a certain cost, you need the rents to be at a certain level, right? And you obviously can't wait too long to fill up the building either. So it's like absorption is a concern, rent rent levels are concerned, you kind of, you need the, you're gonna have a fairly significant loan to service that you need to generate enough cash flow to do that. Otherwise, you're gonna have to kick in a lot more equity to keep afloat. So yeah, I'd say that's, and obviously you're still dealing with the construction risk during construction, obviously, which is kind of the same. But yeah, it's that exit that's not certain, right? Like you're not you haven't sold anything.
I guess it's
like,
not as certain as it would have been if you had a pre-sold condo at like 75%. Yeah, that's definitely a different ball game.
yeah.
And I guess with that, like if you're modeling something these days on your pro forma, are you, or how are you seeing the effect of the supply cliff that we're forecasting to happen in about 3-4 years? Like,
Yeah,
is there like, how do you even deal with that?
yeah, I think you got to be conservative. Like, I think we're trying to underwrite at today's rent and with no escalations whatsoever right now, and we're trying to be conservative on our rents to make sure that we're going to achieve them. But yeah, in the back of your mind, you're kind of thinking like, okay, there's a real supply cliff that's coming, right? Like the forecast for 2029 is at the moment 0 new condo being delivered. Immigration a slowdown. Obviously, we're not at the 1.4 million that we were at like a year or two ago. But still, people are still coming in, right? Like inflation, like immigration is going to stabilize at levels that it was for the last 10 years, right? Like if we're 400,000 in Canada, you're thinking probably 80 to 100,000 are coming to the GTA. They need somewhere to live. And we're not, I mean, we were never delivering enough units in our market anyway, but now we're going to levels that are just unsustainable. Like if people think that it was expensive before, or, things are about to get a lot more expensive when there's really nothing being delivered. So it's just, I think the rents are going to have nowhere to go. But the big question is kind of just the state of the economy, which can people afford the rents that you have to charge to build those buildings, right? So it's like salaries haven't really gone up in the last, like salaries are really lagging, right? Like I kind of go back to my own personal experience where when I bought my first condo unit back in 2000, and it would have been probably 2011, right? Like I bought something at $400 a foot, and I was at a certain point in my career where I could afford that. But now that same unit at the point that we're at right now is at least $1,000 a foot, maybe a little bit less today because the market has come down, but it's significantly more. But the salary
The
that
incomes haven't gone that up.
yeah, like if I was at the same point in my career, yeah, I'd probably be making a little bit more, but not
double.
not double or triple. So I think, I don't know, I think a lot of people are going to be forced into purpose built, which we haven't been delivering enough purpose built rental in our market. So I think that's a good thing because I think it's a lot more desirable if you want to rent to be renting from in a professionally managed building where you have security of tenure, right? No one's going to kick you out. It's professionally managed. There's someone to call if something goes wrong, as opposed to dealing with a one-off landlord that might or might not be responsive. So yeah. So there's
I'm just trying to wrap my head around. So wouldn't that, I guess, wouldn't what you just explained make the PBRs actually the more, I guess, best performing or having the best opportunity in the future of like a risk adjustment investment type?
Yeah, you would. I mean, it's got good things going for it, but it doesn't make it less risky in terms of the economics of like having to deliver it on that formula. Like, I think the problem with condos right now is that the formula is broken to be able to deliver condos the way we were delivering it in the last 15 years, right? Where you're really relying, like you said, you're relying on the investor market. You need to be at least 70% pre-sold. You're selling off plan to investors. Like it's very few end users are making life decisions 4, 5, 6 years ahead. So it's really people that have been lucky, like that people have been wanting to invest in real estate to get those projects going. But right now it's just if the investor market is gone and for a few reasons. I mean, a lot of those investors were banking on price appreciation, which right now is not happening, and we're banking on their units being able to cash flow, and that's not happening either, right? Like so I think the investors kind of got burnt, and who knows when they're gonna be coming back to the market. Like in my opinion, is that they're not coming back on the same fashion that they were before. So it's going to be very hard to get even a 40-story tower going when you can't pre-sell units. Like, so it's like the formula is going to have to change if we want to have a condo market. So
like PBRs are basically the better of the two evils at this moment in time, but they're not necessarily a knight in a shining armor.
No, 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 they're not. It's just like the returns are tight, right? Like there's other places maybe to put your money that could generate better return, right? Like the stock market is
True.
probably one of them, right? Where
That's true.
you're like
That's very true.
even where bonds are, it's like okay, like if I can invest my money risk free at 4 or 5%, it's like okay, am I really taking this much risk on a it's a riskier proposition, obviously, to be buying real estate. So I don't know. Time will
Yeah.
tell. But yeah, it's definitely a very
So
interesting
so
time in our market. I mean,
I want to segue with that. I think I kind of know the answer, but I want to ask you anyways. If we were to go back to 2021, before the minute you decided that yeah, this is I'm gonna flip this switch and we're gonna have our own development business going on. What are some of the things you wish you had known back then?
yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I wish I had a crystal ball for how this was gonna go. I mean, nothing can really prepare you. I mean, and it's probably true with entrepreneurship in general. Yeah, it's yeah, like it's a roller coaster, right? You just there's a lot of downs and very few no's, right? It's like it's like no, 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 yes, no, 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 yes, right? So you kind of you kind of have to take it in strides, but. Yeah, look, it's definitely not easy, and like real estate development in general, it's a very high barrier to entry, right? Like it's just it's very capital intensive. You got to provide a lot of personal guarantees on money that you're borrowing, which is something you or wouldn't have to do if it was in the States, for example. So no, I mean you kind of have to just I don't know, like
What was what you're
move
saying?
forward. Like you got to just try to do your best every day, and yeah, just keep moving forward. So.
Gotcha. In terms of with the city dealing with the approval process, I know you and I have shared some of the experiences, obviously, but what are some of the opportunities you're seeing right now for future? Like if you, I don't know if you're in the process of buying new sites, picking up property, what assumptions are you building into your next purchases in terms of, okay, I think the policy approval, the financing is moving in this direction. Here's where I'm going to make some assumptions when I'm underwriting a new site.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we probably have a better idea now of what is going to be able to be getting approved, at least on what we're building. The mid-rise form, the mid-rise guidelines have changed pretty significantly from the moment that we started. So I
Very
think
true.
we have a pretty good idea now of like, okay, yeah, we think like this is doable. This is doable as a site plan or minor variance, and minor variance quickly or depending on the site, maybe not so quickly. So it's kind of gauging that during your DD period to say like how confident you are. We're also very much relying on having a pack with the city early on to kind of flush those things out to make sure that we're not crazy. But yeah, I'm really lucky that I have two exceptional planners on my team that are very much on top of the policies. So yeah, and I mean that's the thing with development also is you're relying on a lot of people, right? Like to kind of
It's true. It's team
you know
sport. It's a team
it's
sport.
definitely a team sport. So
Are there any trends like you with 230 Royal York with the Halsa project? You guys were at the very peak of a trend in Toronto and Ontario with testing out and pushing the barriers. And kudos to you and also the Windmill team for making all that push and making the leap to use that new system, build the one of a kind building that we currently have.
mm,
Aside from that, or maybe in addition to that, are there any other trends that you're seeing in the market that excites you in terms of on the construction side of things or on the innovation side of things that you would think in the next 5 to 10 years things are going to be better?
yeah, it's tough, right? Like our industry really hasn't been moving very fast in terms of new methods of construction or new technologies, or we're always kind of lagging, right? Like, and it's I mean, part of it is like there hasn't been the need for innovation because things were working before, right? It was very much rinse and repeat, right? Like we built it that way the last time it worked. Like, why are you going to change anything, right? So now we're at a point in time where it is more challenging. We got to look at alternatives to see how can we make it faster, cheaper, better, right? Like more sustainable. So yeah, and this is really what we've been trying to prove out with 230 Royal York. So where whether we can replicate it, time will tell. But yeah, I am excited about a lot of those alternative methods of construction, right? Like we have been exploring fully modular. There's a lot of groups that are doing it elsewhere that want to replicate that formula here that I think could be super interesting. But it comes with a lot of challenges to do any kind of offsite construction. Just the financing is tough. The logistic is
Very
hard,
true.
right?
Very true.
But yeah, it is exciting. Like there's definitely a lot of cool things happening on that front. I don't know. For me, like I'm still excited about the kind of the more livable scale, right? Like I wish we were able
Mhm.
to build larger units. So unfortunately, it's hard to make the project work if you have all large units that are all catered to end users. Like I live in a condo building. I like living in a condo building. I'd like to live in a slightly smaller condo building, but there's not a ton of them, right? And it's hard to find suites that where you can raise two kids in a condo. So I wish I could deliver more of that, but just the economics are challenging. So yeah,
That's what we're really pushing for, because it seems like you said, the missing middle is missing, and that's
yeah,
what we're pushing for. In terms of, we have a traditional question on the podcast. If we were to give you a magic wand for the next 5 minutes, where you could change one law or one paradigm, or make a wish, basically, to make things a little bit better when it comes to our industry as a construction or development or investment in real estate, that would lead to a more affordable, livable society and community and city, what
yeah.
would that one wish be?
Yeah, I think you definitely got to reduce government fees in general, right? Like we're always just it's gone extremely expensive to build, and that's kind of by design, right? That's kind of self-inflicted, as right? Like just the amount of taxes that we gotta flow through in our financial model, right? That all gets passed to the consumer, right? Like it's not it's at the end of the day, that's what's happening, right? Like and that's what people don't realize that that's just we need a certain margin to be able to build. Otherwise, nobody's gonna lend you money if you can't don't have the prospect of getting it back. So you need a certain margin. Therefore, you need to charge a certain price. If costs go up, then if my costs go up, then I gotta pass it on somewhere. So between the two-line transfer tax that we have, development charges that thankfully, hopefully, they're gonna go down. We'll see how that gets implemented, but education levy, parkland dedication, community benefits charges, lane occupancy, building permit, application, like the list goes on and on, right? Like it's, you look at other jurisdictions, especially in the States where it's like, oh yeah, you need a building permit and that's going to be $1,500 to build 100 units. It's like, okay, we're not, like it's like, it's a different model, right? Like, so you provide relief on that front and yeah, we'll be able to build more, hopefully. Like, and nothing would make me more happy to charge less rent and fill the building faster and be able to do another one, right? Like, so,
Yeah,
but
and build and do more of it, because at
yeah,
the end of the day, and this is what we've talked on this podcast before as well, is that I personally believe that development is a community service. Like at the end of the day, you're providing a service to a community that enables them to bring new blood, get better buildings in place, and hopefully have a larger, more vibrant community.
yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah. You need people to make a place vibrant, right? Like, it's just,
yeah,
and I don't know, like that's what we're trying to do is create places where people actually want to live and where there's stuff to do. And so,
and I think I was this is I'm a little bit biased here, but I think you're the 230 Royal York project, especially with the exposed mass timber ceilings and the type of the product. You and I have joked about this before on the site, that it's a Bentley of a product. It has. I don't think there's anything in the market that you guys have not put on that
I
project.
know.
So LEED platinum, geothermal, mass timber,
Yeah.
modular, net zero, passive house grade. Like, is there like there's probably like 16 different checkboxes and
Yeah.
awards and certifications.
And somehow we're not able to get the top TGS tier on this building. It's just like, how,
I
right?
can't believe that. Like, yeah, I know.
It's
I
hard to
know.
find. I mean, there's been no really, like when you talk about incentives, right? Like from any levels of government, there really hasn't been any, we haven't been fast tracked to anywhere. We haven't cut any breaks, right? Like talk about having to deal with Toronto Hydro, right? Had to relocate poles across the
Right,
street, as you
right, right.
remember, right?
Yeah.
Like how much does that cost, right? It's just like, and you're dealing with a monopoly. You only have one, you can only go to Toronto Hydro if you need this to happen. So when they send you
Yeah.
the bill, it's like, oh, if you want to build your building, you better pay it. So, so it's a lot of those things where it makes it, talk about this is another form of government fees, right? Like that's kind of
That's
disguise
true.
where it's just like you
Very
start and
true.
you're not thinking that, okay, like I wasn't planning on having to do that. It's like the rules change midway through our SPA submission where,
Very
okay, the
true.
face of our building was now too close because they changed the rules midway through, right? So I don't know, but yeah, that's I wish it was easier to build the smaller scale buildings, like the 60 unit building, but it's very challenging. It's just like the buildings are not efficient enough, right? It's just the floor plate's too small, but we can't go. We didn't even have the option here to go and buy the neighbor to make it bigger because then you get over 60 units and now you got to provide type G loading. And now, well, guess what? I don't have room to do type G loading. I can't.
Yeah.
There's not enough room. So it's just like
It's
this.
a weird maze that we have created for ourselves as a community that you kind of have to, you get stuck in it. Like you said, hey, you're absolutely right. And you get more than 60, you go over 60, you have type G loading, turning the radius doesn't work, whole bunch of other things kick in, and then at the same time, it's also waste because you are in the PMTSA
Yeah.
area now, and the next neighbor who wants to go there is going to have a much harder time because now they don't have the access.
Yeah,
So
and there's a lot of fixed cost, right? Like it's like you're still building one ground floor, one lobby, right? Like one garbage, you're still
true.
building a one garbage room, one bike. It's like, but now you're only building so much above that's leasable.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's one thing when we're discussing like the pitfalls of development and underwriting. It's like adding or removing a floor to a building has a huge impact. It's not linear at all. Like you gotta, there's people people in my career have loved doing rule of thumbs of like, oh, we're building 1,000 square feet more, 5,000 times your margin, that's how much more we're making. No, it doesn't work that way. Like it's absolutely not. It's just
Very true. Very true. It doesn't
so
work like that way, and especially for when you hit the threshold floors, where you go
mm,
from the 3 to 4, when you go through 6 or 7, and you
yeah,
go and so forth. There are thresholds. There are thresholds in code, and this is where all the complexity. I'm sure you and I can talk about this for hours in terms of discrepancies and non-alignment that exists between the code and Enbridge and Toronto Hydro and Toronto Water and planning and transportation and all the fun stuff that we get to go through all day. I feel like we can have a venting session here for quite some time.
yeah, no, there's a lot of complexity, but that's what keeps it interesting also. Like, and you're still learning something new every day, I'm sure, right? Like there's always
Yeah.
something you haven't come across that you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that, or this is different, or every project is different, and it's just, to me, that's what keeps it interesting. But yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty good. Thank you. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the balconies. The balcony is one of the other trade-offs that is happening. Like we used to have a lot of balconies out of these buildings.
yeah,
I know on that particular project, at some point we got rid of the balconies. It had deal many different reasons, and one of them, obviously, one of them was cost. The other one was the thermal performance of the envelope, the passive house requirements, which made it
yeah.
very difficult to get balconies. But on a pro forma, I'm curious, how do you deal with existence or non-existence of a balcony?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to say if it's going to create a. Historically, when it was a for sale product, the brokers would always tell us like, "Oh, you're not going to be able to sell it if you don't have a balcony," right? So it was like, okay, well, if we want to sell it, whether people are going to use it or not, you never wanted to take the chance of not doing them, right? Like rental, it might still be a gamble not to have balconies, but maybe it's less of a concern depending on how it's used. To me personally, depending on the depth of the balcony, it really depends if it's making it usable or not. Like if you only have 5 feet of depth and you know, I've been living in condominiums for the last, I don't know, 20 years almost, maybe more now. I can tell you my balcony utilization has not been very high, like maybe because of the location, but mostly because, yeah, because the size of the balcony that I have is just not conducive to, if you can't put
Actual use.
if you can't put a full dining table on it, then are you really gonna go sit there? Like just I don't know. Some people do. Don't get me wrong. Like, but to me, unless it's a more of a terrace that has 10 feet of depth, let's say where you can actually become almost like a bonus room. I think you can live without it, right? Like in the right neighborhood where it's like just the neighborhood is really your amenity at the end of the day, where you're like, okay, let's go outside, like, and so
Neighborhood as your amenity. That's I love that concept, and we've been talking about that as well. Is that that's one of the things that we're hoping that the city looks into and doesn't force every building, regardless of their location, to have to carry the same amount of amenity burden on their the
I
location. It's
agree.
just wasted space.
I know, like, look, some amenities for sure make sense, and some are getting used, but I also, depending on how it's programmed, I think some of them are very much not getting used, right? Like if you have a lot of the party rooms, depending on the size of your building and the location of the party room, is probably not getting in a lot of use, right? Like, so 230 Royal York, we're hoping it's going to get used because the city really forced
It
us
has a
to do it.
it has a great view, by the way.
It has a fantastic view there on the top floor where you're kind of overlooking the city. You have a view of the lake, a 180-degree view of the lake, which is kind of phenomenal. And to me, if I was living in that building and if I was working from home, then I'd want to go use the co-working space on the top floor. And I think it will get a lot of use, but sometimes it's like forcing you to stick amenities where you're like, okay, like this could actually be leasable area and actually improve improve the performance of the building and make the project be viable. I think it's just, yeah, it's kind of silly. Like,
Thank you very much, Matthew. I appreciate you being here. Do you have any thoughts that you wish to share with our audience before we wrap this up?
no, thanks, Brian. It's always interesting to talk to you. We can keep going for a while. I'm really curious
No,
to get your thoughts on a lot of things. One thing that we're kind of exploring right now that we haven't talked about is the multiplex. I saw you at the Missing Middle Summit there, which was very well attended, and I think a lot of people are looking at that build form and that product.
I think that's also, it has its own challenges, to be honest with you, but I also think that it's a good option. It's a very good option. It's more than good. It's a very good option for diversification and enabling a lot of people to get into the market. It's interesting now that you mentioned it, because the type of investors and type of people that I'm dealing with who's interested in that would not be the same type of people who are interested in a mid-rise building,
Yeah,
and in a good way. In a good way, it means that we're bringing fresh capital, fresh innovation into the industry. And I've always said that I think we have a very competent low-rise sector that,
yeah,
with a little bit of an upgrade, can easily handle it. I think a lot of them need the upgrade, but they can handle the multiplexes. So
yeah,
I'm very excited to see. We're involved in a few. So
yeah.
I'm very excited to see how it goes. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm really excited to see where it goes to. We're kind of softly exploring it, seeing if this is a model that can work. But I don't know, to me it's I like the idea of it, of going straight to building permit, no development charges. Like there's my wish being granted of reducing a lot of those government fees, right? No DCs, no parkland, no community benefits charges. Like that adds a big burden. You're building stick frame, which is a lot cheaper than building in concrete, slab on grade. Again, just faster construction. And I think you're creating units that should be very desirable from an end user perspective, where if you're able to deliver a 3-bedroom unit in, I don't know, 1,250 square feet that lays out well, that's a walk up. You don't have to deal with elevators. I don't know, I think when you can charge, let's say, $3,500 a month for it, if you can build it at the right price, and I don't know, I think that's got a lot of appeal to it. Is that the thing is
I 100%
it's just,
agree.
you got to be kind of have to do a lot, like you kind of have to build a lot of them to kind of replicate what I'm doing right now at 200 units. But
And
yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. I don't think this is going to replace that. Like, I don't
yeah,
think we should never think about it as if
no,
the multiplexes are going to fill the gap and replace the 8-story 200 unit building, because that's just not going to happen.
yeah,
But it's an addition, it's an augment, if you may,
yeah,
to the process, which hopefully, like, not hopefully, it will play a role.
yeah. No, I agree. No, look, I think all forms of housing are good. Like we need as much as we can. So, and all of this, you're kind of seeing it right now, right? Like there's a lot of deliveries right now, and the rents are going down, and that's supply and demand in action. Like, and that's what people should want, right? Like for years we've had the fight of like, oh no, this is not a supply problem, right? Like it's just no, it very much is following
It's a supply problem.
economics 101, right? Like of supply and demand, like, and you're seeing it right now. So, and I think you're going to see it on the other side when there's no more supply. So, yeah. So I don't know.
Hopefully we find a way to do a soft landing on that cliff, because that is a scary cliff.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't know
hoping
how,
this
how soft it's gonna be, but
there will be a little bit of a bump, I'm sure.
yeah,
Hopefully not. We keep our bones intact. Let's put
yeah,
it this way.
yeah. No, that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping to
Yeah.
make it through the other end of that cycle and kind of being better positioned to do more. So, yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. This has
Thanks,
been
Payam.
fun, and hopefully in a year or two we do a round 2 of this.
Yeah, that'd be
Have
great.
better updates.
Thanks,
Thank you
Payam.
very much.
Thank you.